I'm going to be talking to an amazing girl who got into one of the top universities in the world. And the university she got into is University of Pennsylvania.
I think it depends on the background. For students who come from a public school and want to get into top universities, you have to have someone who can guide you through this process. And not anyone, but like experts in their field. And when choosing a mentor, you have to make sure like who you're trusting your application, your personal story with. My mother, she took 2 shifts when I was preparing for a college application.
Rather than have like Freshman Academy or some other agency look at your essay, you have ChatGPT do it. And would it get you the same outcome, better outcome, or worse outcome? Like when you reach out to these professors, don't they turn you down?
I took SAT over, I guess, 7 times. And then in all of those attempts, I got 680, same score in all of those attempts.
And how's reading different from, finding out about all these things from, say, movies or podcasts or, video content?
I appreciate more of like learning everything in the process rather than just receiving some guidance and then following that. It's more fun, engaging, and then like learning it through mistakes. We're just high school students teaching econ. We didn't have any like qualifications to show that we are good at it. It's just like, hey, we're good at one thing. If you want to join us, we can teach you based on our own experience.
And how much do you think Olympiads you won helped you get into UPenn?
In order to prepare me for Russian school, she took me to her classes, and then in the very first class, I just spoke the word "privet," and then that's it.
Cool. All right. Let's save some of it for the podcast. All right. So you tell us when to start. Hey folks, hey everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Astra Muse. I'm your host, Muhammad Ali here. Today, I'm going to be talking to an amazing girl who got into one of the top universities in the world. She's originally from Navai, and the university she got into is University of Pennsylvania. Many people know it as UPenn, right? I've heard it's in top 10, right? Today I'll be talking to her about her experience of how she got in and then the challenges, the difficulties she's had, and how she overcame them, and a little bit about herself, right? And if you guys are interested in today's episode, please keep watching. All right, it's time to finally meet our guest, Ms. Ruhshona. Hi.
Hi everyone. Thank you for hosting me today. I'm Ruhshona Sobirova. I'm 19 years old, and I recently got into the University of Pennsylvania. That's one of the Ivy Leagues, with a full ride scholarship that adds up to that is like $370,000 for 4 years.
Wow. $370,000 you
Yeah,
said, right?
370.
So when you say full ride, you mean everything is paid for?
Yeah, like
Like
a full
your-
tuition. I mean, they pay for the tuition, and the difference between full tuition and the full ride is like for when people get full tuition scholarship, it just pays for the like tuition fees. It just covers the tuition fees, and then when it's full ride, they other than tuition fees, they also pay for health assurance, like dorms, like. Yeah, and then like food, and then even like they even cover travel expenses, books, and then like basically everything. Like, and then even they even give like pocket money. They pay you for even coming there. They like you just have to go, and then like they'll pay for everything.
Right. It's like hitting the jackpot.
Yeah.
$370,000. That's a lot of money. So now let's step back a little and talk here. To give people some context. Talk a little about your, background, your upbringing. So you're from Navai, right? What is it like growing up in Navai? What was it like growing up in Navai?
Like what specifically do you want me to talk
So
about? Like educational part or like family?
a little bit
part?
of everything, like the give people some idea of what this region is like.
It's fine, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I believe it's fine. I grew up in Navai. I was born and grew up in Navai, and I live in a family of 5. I'm the middle child in my family, and then I'm the one for whom they set, like, my parents have always set high expectations, and it's always been like I need to be the best in everything I do, like starting from school. In every aspect of life. That's I guess a little bit about family side, and then it's from educational part, I guess, like It's been fine, yeah. Like we have a lot of opportunities. Like if you want to like take IELTS or like take SAT, we have, and then like especially from education part, and then like students are very studious, and then like everything. But yes, if in admissions, like especially regarding admissions side, if students want to study abroad and then everything, I guess it's a little bit like lacking in terms of opportunities and resources like it has to offer. It's unlike Tashkent, we don't have a lot of like opportunities like extracurriculars wise. But then like overall, I guess it's great, yeah.
You went to a public school, right?
I went to a public school, and we have recently, I guess it's not very recently, but when presidential school opened in Navai, I was like in 10th grade already. So, and in Tashkent, it opened like when I was in 8th grade. So it's a little bit, I guess, it's ahead, but still fine. And then I went to public school, yeah, for 11 years.
It's really impressive if you think about going from a public school, coming from a public school background, and getting into one of the big universities in the world. Because a lot of students out there think that it's not possible unless you go to some private school.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think like that too, especially, I mean, especially with the Ivy Leagues or any other top universities. Because I've heard cases where students from public school would go to study in a lot of like good universities, but especially with like Ivy League schools, I wouldn't think it was like it's possible because like you need to somehow for universities you need to somehow to be able to get in they has to like admissions officers before accepting you they have to make sure that you meet the you are able to handle the academic pressure of the university and then with private schools and then like presidential schools they have like with academics especially academics they're like very rigorous and then they're like that's why they kind of like trust when trust is like academic rigor when accepting students from those schools, private schools like Tashkent, I guess, international school and like presidential schools. But with public schools, they don't know the system and then the curriculum and then how you show that you're like on par with those students or even like better or like you can handle the academic pressure of the universities like by taking those SAT scores, Olympiads, and then also like, I guess my school, it was a public school, but it also has some specialized like classes and ours was in math and then like in humanities. You can like talk about basically your counselor talks about the academic like academic rigor of the school curriculum and then basically the way we show academic preparedness is like SAT and then Olympiads and then some like research like some things related to academics anything.
Right. Your CV says you graduated top of your class.
Yeah.
How did you do that? You were one of those straight A students?
Yeah, from the first grade. I said in the beginning that I was, from the very beginning, I was used to like always being the best at what I do or like my family setting me high expectation. And then not just because of my family, but just my personal philosophy is like, what do you do? Like, be the best in it. And then I would just not allow myself like how like getting like fours or like I would get fours but like B's it's a B right but I would always try to be like ready for the class and then like be prepared and like of course my social life would suffer a little bit but like because I was more focused on academic life but from the first grade on I didn't have any A's and then I wanted to like continue like this and then until the 11th grade I guess I from the very first until the 11th grade I didn't have any B's in my transcript and then and graduated with the I guess gold medal honor they give.
So would you put this attribute down to your family upbringing or your personality? Like you've always been this way?
I think it's more of like it's both but more of like personality than upbringing because my family never pressured me to study good or like be good. I just I guess it's just the way I am, but also family too, like more of personality than family, but a little bit of both.
Right. And at what point did you realize that you were a kind of a person who always pushes for excellence? Like when do you think that started? At what age? was there like a turning point in your study years, or you've been this way for as long as you can remember?
I
Or
mean,
was there any particular event that
then,
sort of made that personality change in you?
um, I feel like it's as long as I can remember, but
Mhm.
like
So like with,
from the very start, like I didn't go to kindergarten, by the way, from the very for like early age. I went to like I took private classes from like I had a private tutor who would tutor me for a Russian school. By the way, I came from a rural area, like. When I was like 4 years old, when I came to the city, and then my family decided to send me to a Russian school, and I didn't know a word in Russian. And then my tutor was like a very like old lady. She was like in her late 60s or like 70. She was a like a Russian lady who didn't speak a word in Uzbek, but we somehow kind of communicated. At first, it was through gestures. I remember my very first class when my mom decided to like take me and. Like in order to prepare me for a Russian school, she took me to her classes, and then in the very first class, I just spoke the word "привет," and then that's it. And then she just looked at me and she was like, I'm not sure if I can work with her, but I was confident in myself, and I'm like, I'll try hard, and then I'll do my best. She was very demanding. I think she also Mrs. Zenaida, her name is, by the way, the person I am right now, I think she also played a big role in my personality, and then like the person I am today, basically, like values, this like being demanding and then being strict with myself, always setting high goals, and then everything, like yeah. At first, I didn't know a word in Russian, but then in like a year or so, in a few months, until I went to school, until I was like 7 years old, I basically, yeah, I was like intermediate or like up to intermediate level in Russian. It was hard in the beginning, but then like I learned Russian, and I went to Russian school. I guess it's as long as I can remember. Like yeah, this is part of my personality, I guess.
Right, right. Well, I'm asking you that because I'm really trying to understand what students like you have in common, right? And where all it starts is it by nurture or nature, right?
It's just
This-
both, I
it's a
guess.
little bit of both. There's
Yeah.
both at play, right? Sure. I've had a bunch of other people who came on the podcast and they talked about their upbringing and how they, uh, you know, got into these big schools, and I see there is a pattern that most of these guys are overachievers. They're very they're very driven and demanding on themselves, and that's sometimes because of the way they were brought up. Like that, this last time I had the this guy who got into Harvard, and Mr. Azizbek, right?
Azizbek, right.
Mr. Azizbek, and he was telling me when he was young, his mom would, always push him to excel or to outdo his peers. Like this was one time he went up to his mom and said, "Mom, maybe I'm gonna get 7 IELTS," and
Yeah.
his mom went like, "Why not 9?"
It was actually the same with me too. Yeah, I mean, my mom, I guess, would always push me to be better and like in everything, and I actually also had the same scenario with the same case when I was like preparing for IELTS. Like when I would say like I want to get 6 or like 6.5 or maybe 7, and then she was like, why not 8 or like why not 9? Yeah, and yeah, it's I
So
guess
yeah, upbringing does play a
upbringing.
part. Does play a big part, right? One of the other things you said on your CV was you got GPA 5. What does it mean?
Like
What is GPA 5?
grade point average, like that's basically, I guess, your grades. They add up, and then like they divide it, and then they calculate basically they calculate the grade point average, the average of your grades, and then in public schools, I don't know right now the system I guess changed a little bit. It's like based on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, I believe, in public schools. But then back in our time, it was like on a scale of 1 to 5, and then I guess like yeah,
Do you
if you
think admissions officers believe it when you say I got GPA 5? Because like I know I kind of have an idea how hard it is to get GPA 5 in U.S. schools. It's no walk in the park, and because the highest GPA you might be able to get is 5, but most excellent students get 4.9, 4.8, and then you got 5.
and then in application
Is that
process,
yeah? Is that really reliable?
that's
When
reliable if they like look at it as a whole picture. I mean, they don't just look at your transcripts, right? And basically the way to like show them that you got 5 GPA. I mean, they obviously see the transcript that your counselor sends them. There is a separate application. There is a separate account, Common App account, for counselors and teachers, and then they submit your transcripts, the copy of your transcripts and everything, recommendation letters and everything, and then. Like when they look at your GPA, they don't just look at your GPA. Like the first thing that admissions officers like see is your grades and academics. Basically, they look at your grades, they look at your SATs, they look at the maybe honors you had, and they basically look at everything. For example, if students like had 5 GPA, like 5 GPA, and they come from a public school, but their like SAT is somehow like 1300, right? And then they basically see that like the academic pressure, either the academic like not pressure, like rigor of the school wasn't that like good. The school, the classes the student took wasn't that demanding, or maybe the student lied. Like I don't know.
Right.
And either of those things. Like
So you see that inconsistency
yeah,
in their
there has to
GPA.
be internal consistency within the application because they don't just look at your like transcripts. They look at everything, and everything together has to make sense. Like. And that's basically how the application process works. Internal consistency there has to be.
And how much do you think Olympiads you won helped you get into UPenn? How big of a role did they play in you being able to get a scholarship? So you took part in a few Olympiads, right? It
Yeah.
says here you got gold and
Russian
silver
literature,
medals in
math, and then English.
English
I tried
literature.
a little bit of everything, but then and Russian. Interestingly, I didn't speak a word in Russian when I was like in the first time I met my teacher, 5 years old. But when I went to school, starting from the second grade, we had this thing called Bilimler Bileşuğu. It was an Olympiad between like. Right now, it's, I guess, from the 8th grade, students can participate, but back in those times, we had it, students could participate from the 2nd grade. And then we had this, like, school stage level, and then I participated and took the first, like, place, and then I went to the city level, higher region and everything. I guess I started participating from Olympiads from the 2nd grade. And then after a while, when I started learning English, I switched to English and then math. And math was on a school level. I also had poetry, Uzbek. I wrote their literature. It's poetry and literature. I would take part in contests, like poetry contests, poetry recitation, ghazals of Navai and everything. That was a huge part of my application too, because like something you mentioned in your like honors section could also be obvious from your supplementals, or like you could refer to them. Like literature, poetry was also a big part of my application. Even though you don't mention, even though you mention your achievements in application starting from the 8th grade, like last 4 years, the fact that I participated in Olympia starting from the 2nd grade could also be obvious from like my personal statement. I mean, I wouldn't say in personal statement, even if I don't say that I participated in Olympiads. I mean, you don't mention your activities in personal statement, but you could refer to it as an experience or like the personal part of it rather than just stats, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, right. So it sounds like you got excellent academic record. So that all these things you mentioned, your GPA, your Olympiads, and then the fact that you graduated top of your class, all helped you.
Yeah, all helped me to
a lot to get a scholarship. Yep. Now, getting into UPenn in the first place, why did you choose this university of all the universities out there?
I felt.
Has it always been your dream university?
No, it wasn't. It's actually been my 3rd time applying. It's my 2nd gap year. I mean, by the time I go to college, it will be my 2nd gap year. And then at first, in my very first time of applying, I was, I guess, in 11th grade. I didn't have any like a lot of like experience in application, and then I went and applied to randomly chosen like top universities, or like a little bit of like a couple of like top schools, a couple of Ivies, and then a couple of like public schools. I mean, I didn't have any like a lot of experience in that, and I basically applied to universities randomly. And then in my second gap year, in my first gap year, like second attempt of applying, I was pretty mindful. I mean, the experience adds up. And then it was my third time of applying to universities. But first time of applying to UPenn. I never applied to UPenn before. And as the more I was doing research on universities, the more I realized that UPenn was like best fit for me. Like people ask me, why not like Yale, or why not Harvard? They're like, but you could get rejected from Harvard but be accepted to UPenn, and it could be the other way. Like you could get into like MIT but get rejected from Harvard. It's about more of like fit. Like every university has their like own ideal like student image, or like the qualities or like values they look for in students, like personality and everything, and it has to match. Like, and then I guess with me, UPenn was like the best match.
Did you apply to other universities alongside UPenn?
This year, like in this admission cycle, I applied early, and then when you apply early, you don't have the freedom of applying to a lot of universities, because like there is early decision, there is early action, and then some universities, a lot of good schools have restrictive early action, and the difference between them is that when you apply early action to one school, yes, you can apply to other US schools too, but when you apply a restrictive early action, it restricts you from applying to any other universities, like in US. I mean, it's not binding, meaning that if you get into, most IVs, actually, UPenn has ED, but Harvard has a restrictive early action, Yale has a restrictive early action, a lot of IVs and other schools have restrictive early action, meaning that if you apply there, you cannot apply anywhere else. But it's not binding. But early decision is that you can apply to other universities too, but if you apply ED to one school, you cannot. If you get in, you will commit to this university. And if I'm applying ED to UPenn, I can apply early action only to any other university, but any other university that I would want to apply to has a restrictive early action. If I apply there, I cannot apply to UPenn, so I ended up only applying to UPenn. And in the very beginning, I wasn't thinking of UPenn. I was thinking of some other small liberal arts college. Then I had a mentor with whom I was preparing at that time a UPenn application, who helped me in this process, Astra, UC Berkeley student. I also work with Freshman Academy, but specifically with UPenn, he helped me like craft my, application, like check my basically essays, or like help me like guide, and then like here and there. And then he was like, "Why not UPenn?" I've seen cases, and I've seen like students who applied to UPenn and they got in. But the thing with UPenn was that like a lot of people told me not to apply to UPenn because it's need-aware school, meaning that if you ask for financial aid, like if you ask for full financial aid, you might be at a disadvantage because they care about the money you have to pay. Like, and with most of the top schools, it might not be the case. I mean, they have a lot of huge endowment. Like, they have huge endowment. UPenn also does. But still, if you like ask for financial aid in all of the need-aware schools, you are somehow at a disadvantage. And the thing is also with Stanford, like Stanford is need-aware, Columbia is need-aware, and UPenn is need-aware. Harvard is need-blind, meaning that they don't care about your money. If you're like, whether you're an international student or like domestic applicant, if you ask for financial aid, you're not at a disadvantage. But with UPenn, it was that case. But the thing is, like, if you are a best fit, if they think that you are a good fit for their school, they'll pay the money no matter what. Like it's like yes, the money that you can pay matters to the university, but if you are a good fit, they don't care about your money. It's like they have to like love you as a student. They have to want you as a student that much to not be able to care about the money you have to pay, like you have to offer.
And what do you think about your application that gave them exactly that? What do you think about your application that stood out?
I think I cannot mention one thing that stood out the most, but like there are a lot of things. But my personal story, my personal statement, and personal statement is basically the most important part of the
It's like
application.
the essays you write,
It's
right?
like the essay, the 650-word essay. I wrote it in like 8 months. I started writing reflections, and that's actually the essay that I dedicated most of my time to. Started crafting reflections starting from March, early March. And then the first few months was like reflections. I took Freshman Academy's admissions program. And then there we would also like write reflections and then write reflections based on books, based on personal like things, personal story. Reflection started, I started writing reflections starting from March and then like a couple of months until like May, until I had the first draft of my essay. And then I worked on the like main part of the essay for like 3 months over summer, and then like September and October was like basically editing. I guess it's like 8 months, right, starting from March.
Right.
Yeah.
Any way people can see those essays? Have you put them out?
Like people,
Can people see them online?
yeah, but like a lot of people don't want to share because it's like personal,
Oh,
and
all
then
right,
there's also
all right.
plagiarism and everything. I wouldn't want to share it like right now, maybe like in the future sometime, but not right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because it might get you in trouble or
Yeah.
right. Sure. All right. Before I move on to my next question, I want to make sure the mic is picking up your voice because you accidentally
Yeah.
touched it, and mic's working,
Is
right?
it working?
It's working, right? Yes. Or we're good. Okay. Good. Right. Going back to your college application, right? You said you had the help of a mentor, Mr. Oscar, right? And Freshman Academy,
Yeah.
right? So how important would you say it is to have someone guide you through the process, or is it something you can figure out all by yourself?
I think it depends on your background. Like, if you're coming from a public school where, like, there are not a lot of students who apply to top colleges, you don't have a lot of peers like around you who are applying there. And I come from Navai, and I said that it's like college application, like, and all of this stuff have been there like recently, I guess, like in the last 2 to 3 years. Like 4 years ago, for example, when I first started like preparing for SAT 3 years ago, we didn't have anyone like in SAT, and I had to do it like we had a couple of guys basically. Yeah, we did, but we didn't have like any SAT like teaching centers or like any like learning centers or like teachers who would teach SAT. But then, yeah, coming back to your question, I think it depends on the background. For students who come from a public school and want to get into top universities, you have to have, I guess, someone who can guide you through this process, like, and not anyone, but like experts in their field. And when choosing a mentor, you have to make sure like who you're trusting your application, your personal story with. And then with me, it was like I thought that Freshman Academy and then like Ascar. Ascar is basically also part of is also a freshman alumni. Also took freshman courses. That they are the most reliable in Central Asia. And
So, like,
yeah.
what do? They look at your essays. They
Yeah,
help
they
you write
check your
them.
essays, they guide you, they tell you where it's wrong, like which part is like not wrong, but we can like figure out the best way to present it, like
You mean like the language-wise?
language wise, and then like they can guide you through like crafting your extracurriculars or like in a meaning that like what are your like looking at your personal case, they can suggest you or they can like give you
Do they also
recommendations.
tell you like which extracurriculars to do?
No, they don't tell you like what to, they can suggest based on your and everything that you do it on your own, but they kind of like guide you through this process. They guide you as someone. I mean, you don't walk alone. You have to have someone who can tell you if you're going this way, and if you're like switching a little wrong, they're like, hey, it's this way, and then they like yeah, they guiding through the path like process.
So how's that different from like say having ChatGPT help you refine your work, or would that be considered as plagiarism or in
I think
breach of their
ChatGPT.
policies, admissions officers' policies?
I'm not exactly sure if
Like you said that you had Freshman Academy look at your work and refine it, right? Help you change some parts, right? Is that something you can do with ChatGPT? And
I think
would it
no.
get you in trouble?
No, I mean, getting in trouble is a whole different story. But like, I think you cannot use ChatGPT in your essays, and admissions officers are gonna like spot it right away. Like, especially like, not especially, basically every single essay, like personal statement, be it supplementals, they can spot it right away. Admissions officers spot it right away, and then
What are some telltale signs that your essay has been proofread by ChatGPT?
like ChatGPT doesn't have feelings, and then like it's kind of like automatically produced like some sort of like essay, then like not cohesive, no feelings, and it's
What I meant was like, right? You write the essay, and then have ChatGPT point out your mistakes and give you some suggestions, and then you make those corrections manually. Would that still work?
I haven't tried it, but maybe it
Well,
could
it's worth
work.
a shot.
I mean, I feel like it's gonna be obvious, and then the freshman academy also, and then everyone who has experience in admissions, they don't recommend doing it with ChatGPT. It's like, especially with essays, it's like you can get help from ChatGPT with generating ideas, and then like maybe get feedback on your, I don't know, extracurricular list, or like it could help in that way, or like generating ideas for supplementals maybe. But it's kind of like it's not gonna be unique. Like ChatGPT is like it doesn't produce anything new. It just that gives you an outcome based on a big data set, or like I mean, it's also gonna be, I guess, plagiarism if it copies you.
But like, how's it really different from like humans giving you those suggestions based on the data set they've built personally? Right? So ChatGPT runs on a data set, some data center, and humans run on some data, right?
Yeah.
And some experiences. And ChatGPT can, I think, draw on those experiences too if it has access to, say, university of logs you made or the university's websites, right? In fact, I'd argue ChatGPT can give you better suggestions than humans because it has access to more experiences. It's really worth a shot. It's not. I'm not trying to put
Yeah.
Freshman Academy out of business. I'm just wondering.
No, it's like, yeah, but maybe it could work. But I feel like ChatGPT written essays are like spotted right away. And then in Yale admissions podcast, like there are a series of podcasts that Yale does, like Inside the Admissions, I guess it's called. They specifically talked about this, like role of ChatGPT in writing essays, and then they were like, we've tried writing it so many times, and then the outcome was not like good. Like the ChatGPT cannot produce an essay that human can produce. Like,
No, I didn't mean like the production aspect.
no, but even with edits, like maybe with edits it could help. I don't know, but
Yeah, refinement. Just
yeah.
refinement.
Ah,
You
just-
write the
just
essay.
refinement,
Exactly. You
maybe.
write the essay,
Yeah.
and rather than have like Freshman Academy or some other agency look at your essay, you have ChatGPT do it. And would it get you the same outcome, better outcome, or worse outcome? That's my question.
You can try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe give it a shot. Yeah.
Because I'm saying that because some of the people watching this podcast may not have the privilege of, signing up for freshman academy courses, or they may not quite have the connections you have. So right, and or language-wise, they are not that able. So would it still be possible, like having ChatGPT help you with
Check the essay. I
check
guess
your work?
maybe it's fine. Yeah, like if it's for checking and then like giving suggestions, rather than ChatGPT just taking the essay, editing it on its own, and then giving you ready work. Like suggestions, maybe suggestion wise, it could work.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But obviously, in no way I'm supporting here or having ChatGPT write the whole essay, right? Yes, you can tell.
Yeah.
You have to. People can tell when it's sincere, genuine, and relatable.
Yeah,
and
even when you're
it's
like checking your
robotic.
essays of your students, I guess it's like for IELTS task 2, right? You write
With
essay.
IELTS, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's a
like,
different story. But even when you're checking any essay, you can probably tell when it's like written, human written, and when it's like ChatGPT written, right?
Right, right, right. With checking IELTS essays, what ChatGPT does differently from students' essays that it's the level of sophistication and thinking, which IELTS students not quite yet capable of. Most IELTS students not capable of. It's the level of detail, sophistication, and
Yeah, but then I mean IELTS
argumentation.
writing and then like college application writing they're totally different things. But then like just essays wise, like you can tell when the essay is written was ChatGPT.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, the grammar mistakes,
Yeah.
the word choice, obviously.
Yeah.
Right, and that's exactly what I meant to ask. Like, so you write an essay, and there are some words that are out of context or don't feel natural, or some grammar patterns can be revised for coherence and cohesion. So is that something you can be doing with ChatGPT? And I guess the answer is yes. Right, and isn't it the kind of help you got from the Freshman Academy? Or what are some of the like additional suggestions they gave you?
Basically the admissions program, I guess, I mean they do it with full support too, but then like they have two programs for admissions. It's one is admissions program and the other is full support. In both of them, in both of those programs, in admissions, they don't just like tell you how to write essays. First, they teach you how to write essays. Like in the first, specifically with admissions program that I took admissions program. We would spend the first couple of months. It lasts for 3 months, but then the first couple of weeks. Basically throughout the entire program, but before like telling you to write essays, they teach you how to write reflections, how to write good essays through reading books, basically reading dense like fundamental literature like philosophy or any like major specific books, and then write reflections on it like.
And I'm guessing also they also tell you things like this, like what works and what doesn't work with admission officers. Like this idea sits well. This is a red flag.
Yeah, based on their
This is a green
experience.
flag, right? Some insider information.
Yeah, and then with all of the skills, like you learn. They give you like detailed feedback, personalized feedback on your writing, and then even if you don't like write your essays with them, like basically the ready essay, even if you don't produce the ready essay, you basically gain those skills needed to write a good essay from reading fundamental books, writing reflections on them. All of those insights you gain will be like useful not only in like college application but further in college too. Like they equip you with skills like necessary for college.
And you especially need that if you're coming from a public school
Yeah.
where you never had the chance to
Yeah,
develop
and
these
it's
skills in the
different.
first
Like
place.
if you think about it, like in public schools, we don't usually write. We're not usually used to writing reflective essays. We're given a specific topic, and then we write it for example, like it could be any topic, but then we just write on it from a not a reflective essay, but more of like argumentative. But then it's like I don't know, but like we're not used to writing any reflective essays at schools, in public schools, and in freshman academy in admissions program they basically teach you how to write like reflective essays. Like if you read a book, like why do you think the author has used this quote there? What's the meaning of it in the whole context of the passage or like the text and everything? We're not really used to write those essays at school. Like, I mean, we write essays like it could be on different topics. Like, do you think uniforms could be mandatory or like in IELTS writing or like in
Yeah,
anything at
right.
school? Like you know the difference between like essays we write at school and then essays we write for college application, right? They're more of like reflective feelings involved, like especially in personal statement. Yeah, college essays should be more of like reflective, and then how you learned it, like basically admissions program.
So if there was one skill you would want public schools to incorporate in the curriculum, it would be reflective writing
Reflective writing, yeah.
in English and literature classes.
Yeah.
So kids learn how to read and write their insights and reflection on whatever
History,
they've read.
literature, yeah, English classes.
Right.
We would do it in literature classes, I guess, but it depends on the teacher. If it's not involved in the curriculum, if your teacher is really experienced, my teacher was actually like this. Maybe that also helped me. It was a good background in literature and like, humanities. I was maybe able to learn or master those skills pretty quickly and and incorporate them in my essay.
Yeah. And I'm guessing one of the reasons why they would want you to develop reflective writing skills is because it kind of forces you to be a critical thinker. Like the approach, the thing you're reading, the information that's coming in critically, evaluate it, rather than just take it at its face value, which is what we
Question it.
yeah,
Like,
which is what we do at schools or traditional education systems, that we're just fed information.
yeah,
spoon-fed
we're
information.
not actually like used to, I guess, question the author. It's like the author is like the authority, and then you just have to agree with it and tell why the author is making this point. But you could in like reflective, like critical writing, like you can even question the author. You can say like, I agree with those parts, and then like these parts could be like different, and then like you give your own viewpoint.
Right, or there are things I would have done differently if I was in the author's shoes.
Yeah, basically everything, like questioning, thinking how the author is making this claim, why, and everything.
All right, sure. Now, can we briefly touch on your personal IELTS and SAT experience? Because there are a lot of
Yeah.
students who watch this podcast. They would want to get some tips on IELTS and SAT as well. Yeah, but we'll try to keep this part short because I think the standardized tests. I had college application community members come in on the podcast and tell me that they don't weigh as much as like the supplementals and the essays you're talking about. So,
But then they also like essential, but not deciding factors.
yeah, and plus there is abundance of tips on IELTS and SAT. But anyway, people.
I can
would
talk
like-
about my personal experience, and
Yeah.
I have a lot to share here. With IELTS, I can touch upon it briefly. Like I actually started learning English. I mean, I had a good background because I studied at school well, but then specifically like intensively attending classes, private classes in English, I started at like at around 8th grade, but then the pandemic hit, and then we didn't have like any classes. And I studied for like 5 months in the private. Took private classes for like 5 months, and then I did it on my own, self-studied, and then also attended private classes in my 9th grade, and then after it took IELTS and got 7 in my first attempt. After it, I retook it in my gap years, and then like after school, I took 7.5 and then 8. But I ended up submitting 7.5 because my sub-scores were higher there. But basically, admissions officers don't care about your sub-scores as long as they're like higher than 6, I guess. I mean, in a lot of students, you see like they have like overall 7.5 or 8, but then 9 for reading, and listening, and then 5.5 or like 6 for writing and speaking. That doesn't really look well. Yeah. They rather value 7, where it's more of like balance, 7.5, 7.7 for each of those like sections.
Right. And how about your SAT experience?
SAT experience, first time I took SAT, it was in 2022 when I was in senior year of my high school. I took it, and we didn't have, back then we did only have 2 centers in Tashkent, and then they would just fill up so quickly. Like as soon as the registration opens, it could just fill up in a few hours, and then you would not be able to secure a spot. Like, and then I had to travel to Kazakhstan, and for like all the way, like the road could take like for 1 day, and then it's like all the pressure going there, and then when you have all this pressure, actually in admissions officers, if you commit the distance of like more than 6 or like 7 hours, I guess not 6, but if it takes 1 day to commit to that distance, like where the test is taken, they might not even consider. They could be they could actually be a reason to like justify a low score, if you know what I mean. Like if there is no test center near the place you live, you don't have to take SAT basically. But right now we have it everywhere. But back in that time, I could just not take it and say that we don't have any test centers here. And going to Kazakhstan just because of like SAT was crazy back in then. But then I went but that could be a reason for me to like I got 1300, I guess. In my first time, and then I went to Kazakhstan 2 times. In my second time, I got 1350. But then, yeah, I mean, all of this pressure, even in my mock test, I would get like 1440 or like 1450, and then in the real test, it was like 1350. Second time I went to Kazakhstan, but then all of this pressure, like of like going to a whole different country, taking the test in a completely new environment, like in a different country, all this pressure like adds up, and that they may control your test performance. I'm not talking about like a city, but like going to a different country. And that could be a reason for a low performance in the test if you explain it to admissions officers and they understand. And you don't even have to take the test, as I said, if the whole like way of going to the test center takes like 1 day. And with Kazakhstan, it was actually the case.
And probably that was one of the things that made your application strong, is that your willingness, your determination to go the extra mile.
Yeah,
To get
resilience.
those standardized test scores so that you can get into this university. This one time I had, again, that guy who got into Harvard, Mr. Azbek, on the podcast, he was talking about his own college application. The thing that made it look strong, among other things, was the fact that he made the most of the resources available to him in extra. Right, and that's something you did. You tried to make the most of the resources you had in something extra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That plays a role. And then the rest of the experience was like, I ended up not submitting those scores because I could do it, but as I said, in my very first attempt, I didn't have a lot of experience, and I chose colleges randomly and everything. I ended up not submitting that score and applied test optional. I was accepted to a couple of good schools, but they were public, and they didn't give like a good amount of scholarship to international students. I ended up not going there, but from other good elite schools, I was straight rejected, waitlisted from one, and rejected from many. And then in my second time of applying, I had more experience, SAT of 1480, 800 in math and 680 in English in my first gap year. And I ended up submitting this score, and
How did you? A quick question here. How did you process those rejections? I'm guessing this is a whole different story, because it's because you were taking massive risks with your time and your resources, right? So how did it make you feel getting those rejections?
in my very first time, I wasn't like, when you don't put a lot of effort into something, you don't expect a good outcome from it. Like, and you if you didn't prepare well, and you admit that you didn't have a lot of experience in that, I mean, that's obvious. There are a lot of students who put a lot of effort, and then they still get rejected. And then I was like, okay, it's fine. I mean, I got into plenty of good schools. Maybe I'll go there and try the foundation. But then I made up my mind and ended up not trying it because I wanted to do it on my own, the scholarship and everything. But then my very first time of getting rejected did not hit that hard, because I was myself aware that I wasn't that experienced in admissions. And then in second time, I did it on my own. In my very first gap year, I didn't have any mentors who could check my essays, tell me where it's wrong, tell me where I can edit them. I ended up submitting my 1480 and got rejected from, I applied to 20 schools and then got rejected from 20 of them, like straight. That was hard because I prepared and I did the work. But then you kind of like, if you do the same thing and expect a different result, that's like, that's also like, there's a Chinese, I guess, quote, or like Japanese, I don't know. It's a Chinese quote that if you do the same thing and expect a different outcome, that's a first sign of madness, right? And then I wanted to try something different in my second gap year, that like maybe I'm doing something wrong and I don't see it. And then that's why you have to have a mentor, like experience someone who can guide you through this process. But in my first gap year, I mean, I got rejected from 20 schools straight. I thought I like worked hard enough and I deserved at least one like acceptance from one school, like full ride scholarship. But then I ended up not getting anywhere. I mean, emotions, everything, feelings, especially in your gap year. I mean, I spent my 2 gap years in my room. I didn't go to any like local unis. That was, I guess, that's a whole different story. But like, students usually like are enrolled in one local uni and they still try college application. But I wanted to fully commit myself to college application and ended up not going anywhere. I could like, there was a pressure of like, yeah, like my teacher suggested, like I was like good at math, very good at math, and then like I could get into like Westminster, like University of World Economy and Diplomacy. But I thought like maybe if this is my purpose, then why not commit like myself 100% to it.
And were your parents supportive of this decision? Because you
Yeah.
see, in our culture, there's stigma around taking a gap
My
year.
mother was my biggest supporter in this process. My dad didn't support it in the very beginning, but because like dad think about all of the nuances. But I mean, mothers also do. I mean, I'm not being any gender like thing and all of that here. But like my dad was not very like big fan of me like taking this whole gap year and not going to any school and then like fully sitting at home because like you don't have a social life, right? I mean, imagine like everyone even if you from your family goes like to work or like to school every day and then you're like at home all alone by day. I mean, you don't communicate with anyone, you lose human interaction and everything, and all of this pressure, like mental pressure and everything, it's hard. And all of these rejections, they like you think about your sacrifices and then you think about like, didn't I deserve it? Like there was even time when I lost faith in the process, that I mean, I thought people would get what they deserve, but like I worked hard enough. I mean, anyone can feel them, right? Like you work hard and then you don't get the result. But then I decided to give it a second shot and try it differently in my second gap year.
And how did you come to that decision? Like, where did you find the strength or the the faith after you lost your faith, right? To keep going, to keep pushing.
My mother was my biggest supporter, and then like I guess the person I am today, I attribute everything to my mother, like to my dad too, but like more to my mother, because like she was like I mean, here I'm talking more of like personal, like a thing like spiritually and everything. She was like, I kind of like instinctively I have a faith, like I believe like it can still work out. I kind of like feel that. I mean, I can't explain it in words, but she would always tell me like, I feel like you can do it. Like I feel it deep in my heart as a mother that you have to give it a second shot and it will work out. You just need to try differently. This time with a mentor. I mean, I don't come from a very wealthy family where like admissions programs like and then everything all of this also costs a lot of money for an average Uzbek family coming from Navai. And then she was like, I will save money, everything. I might even not take taxi to school. She works at school as a teacher. But then I will save all of this money and then like I might not even buy a dress or like sometimes, or I might sacrifice everything and give you a mentor. And then like I'll be able to afford you a mentor. And my dad works abroad. I come from a family of teachers, but then my dad that didn't go from his way of like working as a teacher, didn't like, and then started working abroad. And my mom is a teacher, and then I kind of like see those sacrifices my family is making for me, and then it's like I at least have to try for them because they believe in me. Like even if I didn't believe in myself, they believed in me, and I would see all of the sacrifices my family was making. Like my mother she took 2 shifts when I was preparing for a college application. Like she would go to school. She worked at 1 shift as a teacher, but when I was applying in my college application process, she worked 2 shifts, like from early morning to till 5 p.m. till 6 p.m. And then she would come tired from school at 6 p.m. and then would like, I'll get in at least for you, mom. Like, and then or my dad, we would talk through phone, and then I would see how he would work in a different foreign country, and that's for me, right? And that's for my like siblings, and for me, that's for us. And then I had faith. Like my parents helped me, and then I somehow decided to give it a second shot and try it again, maybe it will work out, right?
It was so heartwarming seeing you run to your mom and your reaction video when you get the
Yeah.
acceptance letter. Like the first thing you
My
said,
father, my mother, they all cried because that's like, that's again, like when you, I don't know, when you try and give it all your best, like the harder the process is, the sweeter the result will be. So I got rejected. I didn't apply to any Ivy League schools in my first gap year, second attempt of applying, but I applied to average schools, and I cried my heart out over, and I wouldn't say an average school, but like a normal good school. But then maybe God has a plan, or like had something better for me planned. And then in my second gap year, I got into an Ivy League, and I didn't even imagine of applying to UPenn, because that was like, I mean, that's wild. Like why would they accept me, right? And that was SAT. Coming back to SAT, I ended up submitting my score that I got in my first attempt, first gap year, like 1480, when I was in my second gap year. Like I took SAT over, I guess, 7 times. And then in all of those attempts, I got 680, same score in all of those attempts. Like in my first gap year, I had 1480, it was fine. And in my second gap year, I decided to take it again and get a higher score from reading and writing. I had perfect math, and then I wanted to super score. And then I don't know, the more you take the test, they say like if you took the test a lot of times, you're like experienced, don't worry, right? But the more you take the test, the more self-negative talk builds up, and then it's actually hard. Maybe it was at least for me like that, because I would get the same score over and over again, even though I would take even though I would have 770, 780 in my mock test, even 800. Like I would set the exact like exam conditions in my mock test and do it like very fair, strict on myself, everything. But then in the test, I developed testophobia during tests, and then I was not able to, after module 1, and then we shift to module 2, I would not be able to concentrate like somehow, even if my concentration in one attempt was good, self-negative talk, or like if there was no self-negative talk, concentration, everything, like this, I don't know if there is a word like that, but I developed a testophobia for it, and then I was not able to, like, I would see SAT as something, I don't know, like I can do it, like I tried it so many times, I'm getting so many high scores in my mock test, but then I go to the test. After test, I'm like so happy, okay, in module 2 again, as usual, my concentration dropped, self-negative talk. I mean, there are a lot of like things. I need to solve the test, but there are so many thoughts and everything processing going on in my mind, and it's hard to focus on the passage that you're reading. I mean, they could say, oh, just concentrate, everything. You can just sit and concentrate, try concentrate. I tried all of those methods, meditation, concentration, but focusing, concentration, and everything during the test. Practicing more, I did everything. Trying with individual mentor, and tried everything basically, but then still, like, I would get 680 in every single attempt. I don't know, but I was stuck at around this score, and I ended up submitting my first year's gap year. Nothing with my SAT changed. I took SAT after I submitted my ED application in December too, and it was higher, and I did not care because I already got in with my 1480, and then. Yeah, basically, people say that you have to have 1,500 and plus for college application, but I got it with 1480. That's why I usually don't tell my latest score, because it's like you can get it with 1480 too, and for Ivy Leagues like this, if you're applying to IVS, you have to have 1,500 and over, but but with, I guess it depends on your story, too. For my story and for me, 1480 also worked pretty well. And yeah, I mean, it's still not a low score, but for many other, for many IVs and then top unis, they say that you have to have 1500 and above that, right? But I submitted my 1480, and I wanted to go test optional, but still, if you go test optional, they'll think that it was even lower, right? So you should still submit it if it's around 14, 50 and higher. So yeah, there was a very crazy story with my SAT and everything. But I mean, I would all the time retake it, but it was like all the time same. Like
And did you have those retakes all in Kazakhstan, or you had some of them
no,
here
no.
in
I mean,
Uzbekistan?
starting from my first gap year, I guess from 2023, in March, I guess we already had more places to take SAT, and then it was digital SAT, and then we have it in Navai right now too. We have almost in every region in presidential schools, and then more seats, more places available, and then more resources. All of my other attempts were taken in Navai, were taken in Tashkent, but yeah. I guess SAT and IELTS are essential things for them to just see and check the box, basically tick the box, and they just move on. They're not deciding factors of your application, because like if you think about it, like you just need to show them your academic preparedness, and then that's it. Like, and the first thing that admissions officers look at is just your academics, and then when they decide who to, and then they like filter out applications. Like they look at your basically whole academics, like starting from transcripts, SAT, IELTS, and IELTS is just to 7 and 7.7 and above is just enough to tick the box basically, and everything like. And then they just see that if you're ready for academics, to handle the academics, they take you to the next stage, or you get to the rejection or like other file. And then the other deciding factor with who to accept or not is like the essay, personal statement, extracurriculars, and like recommendation letters. Here goes the first, it's academics, and then goes the personality type. For example, if they accept from the first round student with 1500 SAT and then 1570 SAT, when they're deciding who to accept, they won't say this student has 1570 SAT, let's accept them, and then this student has 1500. They are basically looked at the same 1500 guy and the 1570 guy, because they all passed the first stage, and then in the second stage they are not they don't go to your SAT anymore. They go to your essays, they look at your extracurriculars, like recommendation letters, and then there's also an interview involved in most of the schools, top schools, and then everything. Like it's first it's academics, and then it's like personality, then everything.
Right, and then you wouldn't want people to get too obsessed with IELTS and SAT.
No,
like
I mean, as long as you're like 7 and above in IELTS and
You're
get
good.
7 and above in IELTS, and then like 1450 and above. But again, it's like depends on this story and everything with SAT and basically in every part of the college application has to align with your story, and there has to be internal consistency. And even this 1480 aligned well with my story, with my personal statement and everything. So yeah, I guess it worked out pretty well, because yeah, I was also thinking of not submitting my 1480, but they ended up doing it because like if you don't, they'll think that you got lower score. But I also had some other things to compensate for my 1480 SAT. I had a research paper, and that's even actually harder thing to write. I mean, it's much harder than just taking the SAT. I had a 15-page long research paper and I did it during my second gap year, and I had Olympiads, I had good GPA, strong recommendation letters, and then in it all adds up to, and it all shows them that you can handle the academic pressure of the university. So it's not just SAT, it's like everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you opening up about your personal experience of
Yeah.
going through all those setbacks and difficult times you had with your family, and the courage you showed, and the fact that you kept pushing.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to being your age to get through all those moments. It's not easy. It's not easy. All
Yeah.
the mental battles you have, all the demons you have to fight, dragons you slay, or it's really hard. It's really hard, and that's the point where most people would usually just throw in the towel and never look back. But you kept pushing.
Yeah,
And
there are
that
moments.
speaks volumes about your character, right? And right, it's so beautiful, honestly. Like I'm sitting here and listening to you recount your personal journey experience of how of the things you've done this past 2 years and the hardships you've gone through, and it and the kind of and then and how those events shaped the person you are today. It's a beautiful process. It really is. Like it's like a tree or a flower in your garden uh, that keeps growing despite all the storm and rain and all the wind, right? And you just keep going up and up and up. Yeah, it's so empowering. That's what I want to say. All right, we talked quite a bit about your IELTS and SAT experience. Now, what do you say you tell us a little more about extracurriculars you did to boost your college application? So I know extracurriculars are a big part of building your application. So what are some projects you were involved in?
I um, I had basically my passion project. It was my passion project. It was Econovation. It's basically an organization. It's an online
You
project.
called it Econovation, right?
Yeah, we call it Econovation because we
What's
teach
that? It's a weird name.
economics, economics and innovation. Like yeah, we teach economics, but it's a non-commercial project. It's basically, I guess, based on the fact that we don't really have good econ classes in public schools, right? And then we wanted to basically bridge the gap between students who are passionate about economics and then like students who are good at economics who like know, and then like teaching them. Like we don't have any back in when we started, we didn't have any like we're just high school students teaching econ. We didn't have any like qualifications to show that we are good at it. It's just like, hey, we're good at one thing. If you want to join us, we can teach you based on our own experience. And then we would, a couple of mentors, a few mentors who are good at like financial literacy or like microeconomics, macroeconomics, just sharing our knowledge with students who are passionate about the things, conducting webinars, and then like interviews with the experts in the field. Like we did one with the CEO of Team University back in like 2023, I guess, last like December, and then it's basically
2023 or 2024?
it's 2023 December,
Right.
and then we also had. We're also planning to. We have not done it yet, but do a series of webinars and interviews with one big organization. Because we have not done it, I cannot share it. But
And where does your passion for economics come from? Like,
I think
How did you get into economics in the first place?
I guess my upbringing played a role, but then also my passion for math and humanities, everything, everything like coming together. I decided to major in
So
economics.
economics is where math and humanities converge. This is a little bit of a social science.
A little, social science, but then it's not just finance, right? But then it's economics where you think about how people make decisions and then like everything. It's like more humanities involved if you think about it. But then actually, when I was like first, like to be able to like passionate about something, you don't have to be like interested in the, like in the from the very beginning. I mean, I was interested in econ and I wanted to major in econ, but then like when I was first applying to unis, like in 8th or 7th grade, I didn't have a dream of applying to Ivy Leagues or any other American institutions. I just wanted to. I was really good at math, and then like I wanted to try like. I wanted to go with econ, right? Because in our public schools, that's the thing, right? We're not really exposed to subjects, but we're not really exposed to fields, but depending on the subject that you're good at, you just choose the major, right? And that's what we wanted to like change through this project, like getting students exposed to economics, and then like basically showing them what it actually is, how it actually is to study econ.
And which branch of economics you are particularly interested in, like personally?
Labor economics, basically. There is no
Okay.
such thing, yeah, because that also aligns with my story, and that's what I did a research on. That's what my research paper is about. But then when I was applying to unis, I was like, I'm good at math, and then like I'll learn English, and then I will apply to University of World Economy and Diplomacy. But then as I got my IELTS, I was more of like exposed to other like as I was exposed to world of English, like when I was learning English, I knew that there were like a lot of schools, universities abroad, and then you could like apply and get in and then like study there. But it was after I got IELTS and after my talk with, after some talks with my parents and then the teacher, I decided to apply abroad. And then I went on to study econ further, and then like got interested in the research on labor economics that is titled, I guess, the socio-economic and cultural impact of labor migration and then remittances.
And what did you learn
The
through
case of
this
Uzbekistan.
research process, doing your research on this topic?
That's basically like how labor migration affects economies, and then basically remittances. That remittances like money that relatives, like people send to their relatives, like and close people, like back home, family back home, and then how that affects like both receiving economies and then the economy that it's coming from, and like I studied that remittance has both positive and obviously both positive and negative effects. We find the after doing the research, we find the gap in existing research and try to address that. And then in the research paper, that's basically you address the limitations of your own paper. And as a high schooler, I didn't have access to many resources, so my paper had a lot of limitations. But then I had to basically use most of the secondary resources to write my own paper.
And you also mentioned that you had the help of some experts to write this research paper, right?
And an admissions program. Basically, in the very beginning, we had in the program we had professor with whom we could write, we could choose a research topic, and then this research topic also, it's again it's internal consistency within the application. My research topic was inspired by my personal story. The topic of labor migration and then remittances, that was inspired by my personal story. And then if you think about it, it aligns well. Like my personal statement was also revolved around this because it's my personal story, right? And then my research topic, it's not just a basic, like a random research topic that usually students do. Like they say like, oh my God, okay, to get into college, you also have to do like, you have to take APs, you have to write research paper, and then it's not just random things, right? It kind of like aligns well. And I guess to the eyes of admissions officers, it just, it just looks very good because you don't just do things based on like, you don't just do things like randomly, but it comes from a passion, like it comes from a story, and it's more meaningful.
Yeah, that's cool. So you said you had the help of a professor.
We had help from a professor.
How did you get in touch with that professor? Like, do you reach out to random professors from universities and ask them for help?
Yeah, it's in the very beginning to be able to like find my research topic and like start crafting a research paper, like doing literature review, and then like writing it and crafting basically the whole paper. We had the help of like professor from the admissions program, Dr. Luciana, and she's basically a professor.
Oh, you're talking about the Freshman Academy's admissions program. Oh yeah,
I mean.
So
there you get the first basic help, and I got the first help, and then like as I was writing my paper, I found out about the professors. I basically got connected through LinkedIn with the professor with whom I read about like the professor, the research papers of whose I read when I was doing my research paper. Like when I was doing my literature review, I read 2 papers, and then both of those papers were written by one professor. And then I found out about that professor in LinkedIn. I got connected with him, had connections, and then.
And what was his response like? Like when you reach out to these professors, don't they turn you down?
I mean, I thought it would be like that, but then like imagine a high schooler. I mean, I graduated from a high school, but pre-college student is doing a research, and then them reading your work, like attentively, not just basically writing a tweaking or like, changing the email and cold emailing professors, right? If you cold email professors, of course, you might just get, rejections, and then like ignore. They might just ignore you. But then it's like I read his paper, and then his paper played a big, role in writing and forming my paper, and his research area and everything was also like similar. And then you actually personalize the letter, or like the email that you're writing. You write that you read their paper, you write about, so you mention specific things, you mention your specific interest, and then you genuinely show your interest. And then like it's actually also exciting for them, for like the younger generation. They're like 60 or 70-year-old, like 50-year-old professors, right? And then high school students, or like teenagers doing this work, or like not on the same level as them, but then like trying, and then like doing all this work, reading their paper, genuinely showing their interest. They even say like, thank you for reading my papers, and then everything. They really are very welcoming if you do the work and then genuinely show the interest. And it's good if you like have some support from academia for your research paper, because a lot of students coming from Central Asia or like Uzbekistan, they do a lot of research papers, and that's like, I guess, random, and it could not play any role if it's not meaningful and it's just done for the college application. And how do you show that it's like it can actually be good for your college application is through having this internal consistency, one thing matching with another in this whole application. And then, yeah.
Right. You interned at a bank as well, right?
Yeah.
So how did you land that internship? Because I have one particular subscriber who wants me to ask.
I
that
already
question.
replied. Yeah, but
Oh, you guys are already acquainted? Okay, good. So he's like, when he found out you were coming on the podcast, he was like, "Can you ask this question? Can you ask her this question?" And I needed help with this and that. He was actually on the podcast. Some years back. It's the guy.
yeah, I
The
saw.
podcast came out a few weeks ago, I guess. Or actually, the last podcast was his, wasn't it? Yeah, it was last podcast.
I had an internship at a bank. Yeah, it was, I guess, in my first gap year, and first gap year plus like last year of high school times, like 3 months lasting internship. But then I wouldn't say that it played a big role in my college application, because like that wasn't an integral part of it. I just did it for an experience, and you have to have a networking, I guess, too, because I mean, I didn't have very strong connections with anyone working at the bank. It's just an acquaintance, and then you go and interview, and then you tell why you want to do it. Like maybe see how human interactions, like clients and managing clients and everything. You could just work at a reception. Of course, they will not hire you as like a big research assistant or something. But then, yeah, just for an experience.
What did you do as part of this internship?
I was like the reception, and then also helping with filing documents and then stuff. And then reception, like guiding the customers, because not everyone who comes to a bank also knows how it works. Like you can guide them, you can like through the everything like process.
And how long did this internship last?
It was it was a few weeks, like not around 3 months, I guess. Yeah. 3 months, 2.5, and something along those lines.
So what did you learn from this process?
Yeah, client interactions, and then like basically improving my communication skills. And yeah, I wasn't really interested. I also figured out that maybe working at a bank was not for me.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, just sitting and working of course there are a lot of positions, but I did not quite like it overall. Yeah, but working at a reception was fun, because like you work with people mostly, but then there are also people who just work behind the scenes, like just sitting and on the computer the whole day, coming and then going off, no human interactions and everything. But yeah, I like things where more of like human interaction, humanities and everything involved, because yeah.
So how does this internship compare to other like projects you were involved in? Like this one you mentioned on your CV was Ibrat Camp, right? So what was your role in that project?
There was I liked that. Yeah, I really liked that experience, like of all going to and mentoring. I guess we had it back in 2023. The very first project. The collaboration between Freshman Academy and then Youth Agency, a couple of 12 basically mentors from Freshman Academy, students who were good at this admissions process, who had experience of applying, then good at this admissions, would go and teach students all over Uzbekistan, top. I guess we would select top 200 students from Uzbekistan, who wanted to come to this camp, and then go and teach them for 1 week at everything in admissions, starting from academics to extracurriculars, research, and everything. There were 3, seasons for bachelors. I went to the first one, and then I went to the third one. I guess, yeah, it was very fun. Yeah.
Right. So you have until I guess sometime August before you depart to the U.S., right?
Yeah.
So what do you see yourself doing until then?
I want to work more on my research paper because get more help from academia and from that professor, keep in touch with him, and then keep working on my paper, spending more time with my family because that's something I didn't get to do in my last few years of studying and everything. Learning a different language. I started learning Spanish, and I want to keep doing that. Prepare myself academically to college, socially, and that's doing sports. Keep doing sports because that helps. Because in my first gap year, I was really focused on academics, and then you just don't get out of your room, and then sitting in front of your desk and computer for 10 hours straight. Just if you want to take rest, just go to the kitchen or to another room and not going out of house and not going out of the apartment. I guess that's hard, and you have to have some activity where you relieve stress and everything that helps, I guess. And then sports is a very good way of doing that. It really helped to me, and I did it.
So what kind of sport do you do?
It's just physical activity. It could just be, I do attend fitness sessions, but then it's also I started doing more physical activities, such as going out and walking in the morning, taking a walk in the evening, and just going out, walking, and myself with my thoughts, or just with music, and alone sometimes with my siblings, or doing more of physical exercises.
Do you find yourself doing any other leisure activities in your spare time, like reading books?
Yeah, I do.
Podcasts.
Yeah, I do read literature and then poetry. I don't write poetry yet.
So when you say literature, poetry, you mean Uzbek, Russian, English?
Uzbek, Russian too, mostly English, but yeah.
So what kind of stuff do you read?
I read literature Jane Austen's books, Leo Tolstoy's books, but any book that I find interesting to read.
So
that's mostly literature, basically. Yeah.
What's one book that left a big impression on you? Of all the books you've read so far, which one was the most impactful one?
The most recent one.
You told me as part of the Freshman Academy course,
we would also read some dance, literature and books.
Read some philosophy and stuff.
Philosophy,
right? So, which one of the books you read was most interesting?
Interesting one. Okay, the interesting, and then
had you scratching your head.
Yeah, the one I would say the latest one, Anna Karenina, was a very good one. I spent I wouldn't do it as a thing that I'm. When I read books, I don't do it as something I'm supposed to. I can just read 20 pages one day and then read another 20 in my leisure time, or read 100 pages one day and then read 20 pages tomorrow, and then it's kind of I see it as a fun activity. And that was Anna Karenina, and I read it over the months of, I guess, it's a very big book, I guess more than 1,000 pages, I guess. it was spanned across 3 or 4 months, and then it just showed me how deep and complex all the nuances and everything like of human nature, basically, like good and bad, societal expectations, societal pressure, living one's own life against like societal like against society, like basically society sees something as bad, but then you do it but you can also blame them, but because it's like that basically showed me how deep the human nature and complex the human nature is, and then like all the nuances of like societal pressure, good and bad, love, hatred, and all of those deep themes very beautifully explored and then written in a book.
And how's reading different from, finding out about all these things from, say, movies or podcasts or, video content?
Yeah, but then
Do you think it should be only done in, text format?
I prefer it like in books because like it's not just a 2 hour, like I mean in podcasts you could too, but like it's a 2 hour movie or a 2 hour podcast, but then you read book over especially if it's a book, but it's more of like detailed in book, and then it's also like about imagination, like you imagine it, like you when I'm reading about it, I don't just read the book, but I just watch a movie at the same time too. It's like in my mind, and then like reading the lines and then imagining, and then it's more fun actually.
And stimulating.
Yeah, it's
mentally
stimulating and everything. And when you read a book, you just see things from a different perspective too. Like you see things from an author's perspective, and then you like compare it with your own, and then it's hard to say it in words, but it's more meaningful for me when you read it in books.
If you could write a book, what would you write about other than labor economics? Because I can see how obsessed you are with labor economics, but if you could write a book
If I could write a book.
about you yourself or any other thing that is not related to your major, what would you write about? And what would be the title of that book?
Again, I to can we cut this part?
Not really. I mean, you take your time to think, okay? There's no
It's
pressure. I know these aren't questions like you get asked every day.
Yeah.
So
No, there actually is a question as like supplemental prompt of one university that they say like if you could teach one course or like book, if you could write a book or like teach one course, what would it be? I guess I reflected on this when I was writing supplemental essay for this university. I had this question specifically, and then I chose a book. I guess it was something around what does it mean to again, it's related to labor economics, you know. What does it mean to leave everything behind in search of a better life? Like, and my book would explore the challenges and more of like personal side of labor economics. Because when you look at it, it's just statistics, right? But then, again, exploring more of like personal humanity side of it. I guess that would be the title. Yeah.
sure, that's a good pick. I'd for sure give it a read. Give it a
Yeah,
write a book titled
like
Labor Economics.
what does it mean to leave everything behind in search of a better life? And then my book will explore the challenges, sacrifices, and then more of like personal side and stories of labor economics.
Dope. Cool. Right. We're about to wrap up the podcast. And before we do that, there are usually a set of philosophical questions we get into, right? We already did quite a bit of talking about philosophy, but there's still a few questions I'd like to ask you. So first question I got here is your personal philosophy. How would you define your philosophy in a few words? Or in many words?
Personal philosophy,
There's no really word count limit here.
okay. I think what drives me at the moment, I mean, the personal philosophy I live by at the moment, it could change as you live, right? It could be different in the past and in the future. And the personal philosophy that I live by at the moment, and what helped me in the admissions season, and then in this whole last few years too, is like taking the most out of moments we live by, because we are usually so focused in the goal and then in the purpose that we usually, I mean, forget to enjoy the process itself. Like when you enjoy the process, the result will come out good on its own, but you should not just be focused on the goal, but like enjoy the process, living with no regrets, and then just enjoying and taking the most out of moments. And it also, I guess, helped me, this mentality helped me in admissions too, because like when admissions officers look at your application, they don't just look at it comparing it to a student who comes from a very privileged and very good school. Like they look at it on your own, like as a whole, like on its own. Like they don't compare it with other students, but they compare it within your own context, like how you were able to take out of your resources, like how much were you able to take. And then if you show that you were able to take the most out of the opportunities you were given and the most out of the resources you were given, that's even better. Like then, yeah, like if you had, for example, I'm switching to admissions here again, but like if you had, for example, you don't have any clubs at school, but then you initiated it yourself, and then you like just took the most out of the resources at your school, that looks even more impressive than student from who comes from a very like good international like good school, and who had a lot of clubs joining, and then like who also joined the club, or like who also did the same activity as you, but he had more opportunities. It's more of like you didn't have those opportunities, but you created them yourself, or you like took the most out of the opportunities, but then the other student also did the same thing, but he had more opportunities. He didn't take the most out of those opportunities. It's more of like taking the most out of opportunities you have, and then in life it's more of like taking the most out of moments, and then taking most out of life, basically living with no regrets.
Right. There's really sharp contrast with what you see in a lot of young people today who are more focused on their future goals, that they forget to make the most of what they have now. Right. And that kind of makes them restless. Right. And somewhat self-absorbed. That they forget to share the moment they have with the people around them.
Yeah.
It's the taking the most of the moments you have, because it also means being willing to listen to people.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you're too focused on your goals, then you're
Yeah,
not in the
you should
listening
not
mode.
just be self-obsessed, I think, like
right.
caring about the community. And those are the values also, like that community involvement, giving back to the community, and community like caring about others is what deeply is what's like deeply ingrained within PENS, I guess, UPenn. So that's why I said like I felt that UPenn was the best fit for me. So yeah, it's like.
Right. So, what's one piece of advice you would give your younger self if you could travel it back in time? So, if you could talk to 14, 15-year-old Ruhshona, what would you tell her?
I would just say keep doing what you're doing, I guess. Like there isn't like anything specific or particular I would want to mention. I guess everything turned out to be fine until now, so it's like everything happened if like it's meant to be, and it all like turned out to be good at the end. So if I got rejections in the beginning from colleges, or if I had some failures or like anything, I wouldn't give any particular piece of advice, because like I learned everything in the process, and that what makes it better than just getting advice and following that. I appreciate more of like learning everything in the process rather than just receiving some guidance and then like following that. Like it's more fun, engaging, and then like learning it through mistakes.
Right, right. So, no advice at all.
Just keep doing what you're doing. That would be advice. Yeah.
Sure. I really want to ask you this question before we end this podcast. I forgot to ask you this earlier. So, what are the things you are looking forward to doing when you're in the US?
Like during my college time.
Yeah, yeah. Or when you finally go to the US, because you've never been there before,
Yeah.
right? Obviously. So, I meant to ask you these questions before, it just didn't occur to me at the
First
time,
thing is
right?
probably like going and taking video there and sending it to my parents and saying that, hey mom, that I did it, right? But again, like, yeah, exploring culture.
Do you have any landmarks in mind you want to go and visit? Do you have any activities you want to try in the US that are specific to their culture?
I don't have anything specific. I just, yeah, just exploring, going with the flow, and yeah.
Or you just will figure it out once you
Yeah,
get there.
I'll probably figure it out on the way. But I mean, I don't have anything specific I want to try in the US. Because I mean, from the very beginning, US wasn't my dream. Like, I didn't have a dream of America or American dream. I just wanted to study at from the very beginning. The goal was to study at one of the world's top universities, and be it in the US or be it in Europe or be it in China or anywhere. Like, and yeah. I'll figure it out on the way, probably.
Right. So I'm hoping this podcast is going to be watched by you in the future. And assuming the future self is watching you right now, what's something you would tell her? It can be you in 2 weeks from now. It can be you in 10 years from now. It can be you in your 60s. That was my first podcast. So what's something you would want to tell
Yeah,
her?
it's gonna be it would be my first podcast. Maybe I would just say I hope you're doing what you're doing and like taking the most out of like moments that you're living and not like too self-obsessed with the goals, but also like caring about the people you are surrounded with about your close people, caring about your close people, enjoying the moments with them. Of course, focusing on goals because like you need to have a purpose in life. I believe that could be different for everyone, but like keeping focusing on goals, but at the same time enjoying the life's beauty moments with the people I'm surrounded with my close people, and living with no regrets.
Awesome. All right, I guess we did it. Ms. Ruhshona, I thank you a lot for coming on the podcast today and sharing with us all your insights, your experiences. It personally means a lot to me, right? I learned quite a lot about your personal stories. I was moved. I really was. It's not easy to get the sort of reaction out of someone my age. And I'm not too old, but anyway, I've seen a lot of these stories. I've heard a lot of these stories, but yours is truly unique and special in every sense of the word.
Thank you
And
for hosting me.
Right. Cannot thank you enough for doing this podcast today. So, do you have any final comments you want to make before we wrap this up?
Nope. No. Thank you for hosting me.
All right, sure. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you liked our content, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel and leave your comments in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.